Hey everyone and welcome to a new XIM mini tutorial. If you watch this video, then your XIM manager will most likely show you a notification message that says something like config mouse translation is out of date. Or you're just curious on how to solve this problem once it occurs, which to be honest will happen sooner or later anyway, so some preparation in advance is not a bad idea at all. Now in the following video I will explain you what this message means and how you can solve it. The reason for why your XIM shows you this message is the following. Each XIM config contains a so-called smart translator. The smart translators are the technology that allows your XIM to give you those awesome mouse movements without having to adjust dead zone, acceleration or all those other complicated settings. Now every game has its own smart translator and each smart translator is only optimized for that specific game. So in simpler words, a smart translator is basically a variety of complicated settings that the XIM company has already predefined for a specific game. And that means that you don't have to adjust them. Because of that, the only thing you have to do is to adjust your mouse sensitivity and button bindings. Everything else has already been configured for you. But what happens if the game you play receives an update that changes the game mechanic? Let's say the developer of Fortnite releases a new game update that has an impact on some of those predefined settings. Well, in that case, a new smart translator is required because your current one is no longer perfectly optimized for the game. Your XIM will then show you a notification triangle in the bottom left of your config picture to inform you that your current mouse translation is out of date. If you continue to play with your old XIM config, then your mouse movements will no longer be as good as they used to be. Mouse acceleration, stutter or other weird behavior can occur then. So how do you fix that? Well, it's actually quite simple, but first you should load the outdated XIM config. For this tutorial I'm using an outdated Fortnite config. Click on the config picture in the middle and your XIM will show you a small text box at the very top. The only important thing here is the last number, and in my case it's a 1. This means that my smart translator version of this Fortnite config is 1, so it's the very first version of the smart translator. If I now successfully update my smart translator, it has to show a higher value later, so a 2 for example. Now open the configuration menu of your outdated XIM config in the top left. In the first screen you can see the config light and the hotkey feature. Expand the advanced settings at the bottom and click on the copy button. After that you can exit the configuration mode. The first thing you should do now to update your XIM config is by manually downloading the XIM game library. For that you open the options in the top right and then you click on the global settings. At the bottom you can find the Force Games download button. Click it and your XIM will download every available smart translator. This will of course also include the new ones. The download may take a while depending on how fast your internet connection is. Once the download has finished you can continue with the second step. Start by opening the options in the top right and click on the new config button. You will now have to create a new XIM config since your old one will not be updated. It will basically remain as it is and will therefore keep the old smart translator. So use the search bar at the very top to find the game you want to update. I will search for Fortnite since that is the config I want to update. Once you have found your game, you can confirm your choice by picking your console at the bottom. Your XIM will now create a new config that runs on the new smart translator. After a few seconds the config should be loaded and your XIM will show you a pop-up message. If you closed it already, then you can reopen it by clicking on the wrench button in the bottom right corner of your config picture. The new smart translator of this config may require different in-game settings, so click on the yes button to find out if that is the case. You will be now forwarded to the XIM forum. Verify if there are any changes in regards to the in-game settings. If there are any changes, then you should adjust those now. After that you can continue with the following step. Click into the middle of your config picture once again. Take a closer look at the last number and verify if it is now higher than the one from your previous config. That way you can check if your smart translator upgrade was successful. As you can see, my version number got upgraded from 1 to 3, so the update was successful. The last thing you have to do comes now. Open the configuration mode of your new config again. In the first screen you should now expand the advanced settings once more. This time you will press the paste button. That way your new config will now have the same button bindings and config adjustments as your old config. This should save you quite some time. Don't worry, this will not affect your smart translator upgrade. Another thing you should probably do is to rename this configuration. I will add new ST version 3 to the configuration name. That way I can better tell which XIM config is the new one. Another thing you should consider is that your mouse sensitivity might be slightly different now, so you may have to dial in your hip and ADS sensitivity again. At last, you can either keep or delete your old config. As I said earlier, your old config will not be updated. It will continue to use the old smart translator. If everything worked out, then the error triangle in the bottom left of your config picture should now be gone. So you have successfully updated your XIM config and its smart translator. If you are unsure about your smart translator being up to date for a specific config, you can of course do these steps again to verify if the smart translator number in your config picture has changed. If you have any questions about your XIM or about the smart translator update process, just ask in the comments down below. Guys, if you liked this video, hit the like button or even subscribe to this channel. And for the crazy guys out there, you can even become a channel member now. I'd really appreciate that. Plus you also get a few extra benefits for becoming a channel member. Also, let me know if you would like to see more of these XIM mini tutorial videos, and don't forget to post your own suggestions in the comments down below. But that's about it for this video guys, thanks for watching and I will maybe see you in the next one.